My future sister-in-law expected me to pay for her outrageously expensive bridal shower. Now she says I'm ruining her special day. Hi, welcome to Story Nest. Subscribing really helps us grow and makes sure you never miss a story. I was thrilled when my fiancé, James, asked me to be a bridesmaid at his older sister Emily's wedding. It was an honor, something special, and I couldn't wait to be a part of it. I'd been a bridesmaid before, so I knew what I was getting into. The dresses, the parties, the planning, it's all part of the deal when you're standing beside someone on their big day. But what I didn't fully anticipate was how the costs would pile up and how quickly they would become overwhelming. The first thing I had to pay for was the bridesmaid dress, which wasn't exactly a steal at $300. Then there were the shoes, another $80. I told myself it's for a wedding, it's for Emily, it'll be worth it, but deep down, I knew this was just the beginning. Next came the destination bachelorette party. The trip itself wasn't the issue, it was the cost. When I added everything up, flight, accommodation, activities, it came to about $1,000. And that was just my portion. Initially, we were told it would be casual, that it was no big deal if anyone couldn't make it. But when Emily's mom mentioned, almost offhand, that it would be shitty if any bridesmaids skipped, I felt the pressure to go. I didn't want to be the one to cause any family tension, so I forked out the money, all while trying to remind myself it was for the bride. But then, just when I thought I had everything figured out, I got another bombshell. The maid of honor, Rachel, told us we were expected to cover all of the bride's costs during the trip: food, drinks, activities, everything. This had never been discussed. The whole thing felt like a bait and switch. I was already stretched thin, trying to keep up with the expenses, and now this? It felt like the hits just kept coming. I couldn't help but feel resentful. This wasn't how things had been in the past. In the weddings I'd been a part of, it was typical for the bride's family to cover most of the costs for the bridal shower, and the bridesmaids would chip in here and there for small things, decorations, games, that kind of thing. But now, it seemed like everyone was looking at us, the bridesmaids, to shoulder more and more of the financial burden. And it didn't help that I was planning my own wedding just a year after Emily's. Every dollar I spent on her wedding was one less I could put toward my own big day. The situation only escalated from there. I was still reeling from the bachelorette trip expenses when my future mother-in-law, Diane, casually dropped the next bombshell. As a bridesmaid, I was expected to help cover the costs of the bridal shower. I was surprised. This had never been part of the conversation, and in all the weddings I'd been involved in before, it was either family or a close friend who took the reins on this. The bridesmaids would help with some smaller things, like picking out a few games or handling decorations, but the major expenses were typically covered by someone else. Diane insisted that it was my responsibility as a bridesmaid. I Googled it, she said, and it turns out bridesmaids are supposed to cover this stuff, not the bride's family. I was a little taken aback. That was news to me. Was this really the norm? Maybe I was out of touch with how these things worked, but it just felt off. Why was I suddenly expected to take on even more costs when I was already doing so much? I didn't want to argue or cause any tension, so I kept my thoughts to myself, but I couldn't help but wonder if it was fair. The bridal shower wasn't even the worst of it. The vision Emily had for it was lavish. She wanted a fully catered affair with elaborate decor and a ton of little touches that would make it stand out. The more she described it, the more I realized that her expectations far exceeded what the bridesmaids could realistically afford. I tried to voice my concerns to Rachel, the maid of honor, but she was dismissive. "This is what Emily wants," she said, shrugging. "It's going to be special, and we need to make it happen." I felt a pit in my stomach. How could I make this happen when my own finances were already stretched so thin? And all the while, I was trying to balance my own wedding planning, working to save every penny I could for my big day, which was just around the corner. Emily's wedding was starting to feel like it was demanding all of my time, energy, and resources. And then there was the subtle pressure from the other bridesmaids. They were all in the same boat, feeling the financial strain, but also wanting to be supportive. Everyone was talking about the bridal shower like it was going to be a grand event, and I could feel the tension in the group. There was no room to say, "Hey, this is too much," because no one wanted to be the one to bring down the excitement. It felt like we were all just silently nodding along, burying our own concerns, and trying to make things work without rocking the boat. As the days passed, the weight of everything continued to pile on. I tried to push through it, but the more I thought about it, the more overwhelmed I became. The constant flow of expenses, dress, shoes, the bachelorette trip, and now the bridal shower, was starting to feel unbearable. Every time I logged onto social media, I saw Emily posting more updates, more ideas for the wedding, and I couldn't help but feel a little resentful. The lavishness of it all seemed to overshadow the reality that the bridesmaids, including myself, were getting deeper and deeper into financial strain. One night, after yet another conversation with Diane about the bridal shower and how everything needed to be perfect, I hit a breaking point. I could feel my stress levels reaching new heights. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my fiancé, Alex, and I finally let it all spill out. "I don't know what to do anymore," I confessed. "It feels like every time I turn around, there's another expense, and it's all piling on. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep going like this." I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, and I hated that I was letting myself get so emotional over something like this, but it was all so overwhelming. Alex listened quietly, offering his support, but I could see the frustration on his face. He had been more than patient with my involvement in Emily's wedding, but he could tell that I was nearing my limit. "I think we need to set some boundaries," he said gently. "This wedding is important to Emily, but it's also important to you. You can't keep putting yourself in this position, especially with your own wedding coming up." I nodded, knowing he was right. I had been so focused on being the good bridesmaid, on doing everything to make Emily's day perfect, that I had forgotten about my own needs. I was running on empty, and I wasn't doing anyone any favors by pushing myself this hard. The next day, I spoke to Alex about it again. "I think it's time I have a conversation with Emily," I said. "It's not that I don't want to support her. I do, but I also need to be realistic about what I can handle. This is just too much." Alex agreed. "You've done a lot already, and if anyone should understand, it's Emily. She's your sister-in-law, and if she can't understand the pressure you're under, then that's on her." With a deep breath, I texted Emily. I knew this conversation wouldn't be easy, but I had to have it. "Hey, Emily, can we talk for a minute? There are a few things I need to discuss with you about the wedding and the bridal shower." I was nervous, my heart pounding as I pressed send. Would she get upset? Would she accuse me of not being supportive enough? I didn't know, but I couldn't keep letting things build up without saying anything. It took a few hours for her to respond. When she finally did, she said, "Of course. Let's chat tonight." I tried to steady my nerves as I waited. It felt like an eternity before we finally spoke over the phone, and I could tell from the tone of her voice that she was already a little defensive. "What's going on?" she asked, a hint of confusion and concern in her voice. "I just wanted to talk about the bridal shower," I started, trying to keep my voice steady. "I know you want it to be really special, and I want that too. But with everything else going on, my dress, the bachelorette trip, my own wedding planning, it's just getting to be too much. I can't keep up with all the expenses, and I don't want to put myself in a bad financial situation." There was a pause on the other end. I could hear Emily sigh before she responded. "I didn't realize it was this much for you. I just wanted everything to be perfect, and I thought if we all chipped in, it wouldn't be so bad." "I get that," I said, my voice softening. "I really do. But we need to be realistic here. I can't keep paying for everything, and I don't think any of the bridesmaids can. We're all young, and we're just starting our careers. This wedding is important to me, too, but I have to think about my own future, too." There was another long silence, and I was starting to worry she wouldn't understand. Finally, Emily spoke up. "I get it. I really do. I just want to make sure everything is perfect for my day, you know? But I don't want to make things harder for you. Maybe we can scale back a bit." That was all I needed to hear. "I appreciate that so much," I said, relief flooding through me. I just want to be there for you without putting myself in a bind. The conversation with Emily went better than I could have hoped. She acknowledged the stress that had been building up, and we agreed to scale back some of the plans for the bridal shower. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in weeks, I could breathe a little easier, knowing I wasn't being asked to shoulder the entire financial burden. In the days following our conversation, I continued to work on setting clearer boundaries with the other bridesmaids as well. I reached out to them to discuss how we could split the remaining costs in a more reasonable way. Everyone seemed to feel the same way I did, overwhelmed by the mounting expenses. It was reassuring to know that I wasn't the only one struggling, and together we came up with a plan that was more manageable for everyone involved. I also made sure to have another talk with Alex about it all. He had been my rock throughout this whole experience, and I was grateful for his constant support. "I'm so glad we got through that," I said, as we sat down on the couch one evening after dinner. "It feels like I can finally relax a little." Alex smiled, his arm around me. "You did the right thing by speaking up. I know you want to be there for Emily, but you have to take care of yourself too. You don't need to put your life on hold for her wedding." His words were exactly what I needed to hear. I realized that I didn't have to give up everything just to be a good bridesmaid. I could still show up for Emily in a meaningful way without sacrificing my own financial stability. It was a lesson I was learning the hard way, but I was finally starting to understand the importance of balance. As the months went on, the wedding preparations continued, but the tension had definitely eased. Emily seemed much more relaxed about the whole process, and I could tell she was grateful for the honesty I had brought to the table. While there were still moments of stress, after all, wedding planning isn't exactly a walk in the park, I felt more confident that I could handle whatever came next. And when the day of the wedding finally arrived, I was able to enjoy it without feeling the weight of financial strain. I stood beside Emily as her bridesmaid, proud to be part of her special day. We had found a way to make it work, and in the end, that's all that mattered. The wedding was beautiful, and I didn't regret a single moment of the planning process. Looking back, I realized that setting boundaries was a crucial step in maintaining my own well-being while still supporting the people I loved. As I prepared for my own wedding, I carried that lesson with me. It was a reminder that while weddings are incredibly important, they shouldn't come at the expense of your happiness or your bank account. And as for Emily, I was proud that we had worked together to make her day special without anyone feeling overwhelmed. In the end, it was all about finding balance, and sometimes you have to speak up to get there. Hope you enjoyed the story. Be sure to subscribe and like the video to keep up with all our latest uploads.